The cost of living is going up and South African consumers can't seem to catch a break. The basic expenses like food and fuel, among others, are rising far faster than people's incomes. This can result in people spending more than they earn and getting themselves into debt just to survive. So what are some of the practical things that people can do to deal with this new reality that doesn't appear to be going away anytime soon? I'm joined by Gerald Mwandiambira. He's a financial expert, entrepreneur and author, and he's at Sugar Creek Wealth. Thank you very much, Gerald, for joining us. Now, we know that South Africans are really financially burdened and it cuts across income groups. What are some of the practical approaches to dealing with high expenses against a stagnant income?
Look, I think the reality is that COVID has changed everyone's personal finances, and some South Africans have lost their jobs, have had reduced income, and we've all had to reevaluate. I think what we need to do to start to get control of our finances again is to start afresh and to almost start a new budget. Forget how you used to live before COVID and start working with a new reality in terms of what your current income is versus your expenses and building from the bottom up. If you still try and maintain the same lifestyle and standard of living which you were enjoying prior to COVID, you will definitely struggle. For example, if you look at some of the basics, such as food, meat, they've gone up astronomically and far beyond income has grown. So we need to really go back to basics and start afresh in terms of our own personal budgets.
Yeah, you used a word there, lifestyle. Lifestyle to me suggests that we have a choice about how we live. But what about poorer income groups who really don't have a lifestyle, but have an income and have basic expenses that they must try and cover? And sometimes their incomes just don't cover the basics.
That is true. A lot of people are now in an environment and a reality where their income is simply not sufficient to do what they previously used to do. And I'll give you an example. For example, when it comes to meat, which is one of the basic foodstuffs which has gone up quite a lot, people have moved from eating, beef and chicken to almost the offals, which is the mohodu and the cow head, sheep head, etc., because it's cheaper protein, because South Africans enjoy a high protein diet. So these are some of the lifestyle changes which have been forced upon a lot of people, where you've had to simply stop buying what you used to buy and move a step down. And I think a lot of people have had to swallow their pride and do that step down. There's certain types of meat, for example, lamb, which is now simply a luxury for those who have the means to do. But the reality, as you said, is a lot of people are just finding it difficult to make ends meet, and they've had to cut down on expenses quite drastically. Electricity, another one which is putting a lot of pressure on a lot of people currently.
Yes, indeed, even though we don't get much of it these days. So, of course, there are many households that have to resort to debt to survive. What's your advice around that, and how do these households avoid getting into what essentially becomes a debt trap?
Interest rates were cut, obviously, to try and stimulate economic growth during COVID. And it was attractive and possible for those who were in good financial standing to take up new debt. But our advice remains that try and stay clear of debt in terms of any debt which you can't service. Debt by its nature is not a problem, it's whether you can service it or not. So if you are in that situation where either your job might be a threat or your income might be reduced, you need to really be looking at a way of avoiding debt. And where possible, we need to manage accommodation, for example, where you either rent out your home or move back to the family home and get tenants. Or if you have empty rooms, stop having pride. Take on a student or two or a tenant or a lodger so that you can just simply supplement that extra income. Because it's become apparently very clear that we all now need more than one stream of income just to live as we used to before.
Yeah. And the very last question, with interest rates seemingly set to rise quite high, should people who have debt like, mortgages and so on, should they fix their interest?
Now, I've had that question. Now, the thing about mortgages and fixing them is you don't necessarily get a benefit, because when you fix the mortgage rate, the rate they give you to fix it is normally 2% above what it is now. So you don't actually get direct benefit immediately. If interest rates go up another 200 basis points, only then will you start to benefit from fixing that rate. So be very careful before you start fixing the rate, because the rate they fix it at is not what you're currently on. It might be better to stay on a flexible floating rate, because as you saw, National Treasury reduces interest rates when the economy starts to struggle.
Thank you very much for your time and insights there, Gerald Mwandiambira. He's a financial expert, entrepreneur and an author at Sugar Creek Wealth.